Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when silence becomes the loudest scream. A moment when your reflection in the mirror doesn't recognize the battles you fought just to be here. And in those moments, the world might ask you to be strong, to be bold, to be unbreakable. But no one tells you this, that real strength begins when you choose to be kind to yourself. When instead of judging your scars, you choose to honor them. When instead of rushing to fix yourself, you pause, breathe, and hold your heart with gentleness. Today, I want to take you on a journey not through the world outside, but the universe within. A journey of unlocking your truest power, your inner strength, not by becoming harder, but by becoming softer where it matters most. By learning the art of self-compassion. Embrace your imperfections. They are proof that you are alive. There is something deeply human about the cracks in our souls, the flaws we hide, the scars we try to cover. We have been conditioned to believe that perfection is a prerequisite for acceptance, but perfection is an illusion, sterile, cold, and distant. Real beauty lives in the rawness of our stories, in the folds of our pain, in the messy parts that remind us we have lived. When you fall, when you break, when you fail, do not hide. Because those very moments are not the end of your worth. They are the beginning of your truth. The world might applaud your polished self, but it will be moved by your vulnerable self. Stop apologizing for being human. You are not a machine to function flawlessly. You are a soul in progress, learning every day how to be whole. Your imperfections are not shameful, they are soulful. They speak of a journey, not of a mistake. The more you fight to appear perfect, the more you distance yourself from authenticity. And authenticity is where healing begins. Instead of editing yourself, start embracing yourself. Because no one else can carry your story with the same grace that you do. The laugh lines on your face, the tremble in your voice, the hesitation in your steps, they are all evidence that you dared to live. Every flaw is a symbol of strength that stood the test of fire and didn't melt away. The world doesn't need another flawless person. It needs someone brave enough to say, "This is me in all my broken glory." You will unlock your inner strength the day you stop seeking approval for being yourself and start honoring the person you are becoming. There is nothing more liberating than accepting that you are not a mistake waiting to be fixed, but a masterpiece in the making. And once you begin to cherish your imperfections, you won't need the world to validate your worth because you'll carry it in your own eyes. Speak to yourself the way you speak to someone you love. If you spoke to your loved ones the way you sometimes speak to yourself, would they still feel safe with you? There's a voice inside you, often unnoticed, whispering after every failure, every disappointment, every stumble. It's either your worst critic or your best friend. That voice shapes the foundation of your self-worth. And often, we allow it to become a voice of punishment instead of compassion. We soothe others. We uplift them. We wipe their tears. But when it comes to our own pain, we turn cold. We become harsh. We become unkind. Why do we find it so easy to forgive others, but chain ourselves to guilt and regret? If your inner dialogue is constantly filled with judgment, you're not growing, you're shrinking. You deserve the same kindness, the same patience, the same tenderness that you offer so freely to the world. Replace the words, "I am not enough," with "I am learning." Swap "I always fail" with "I am trying." Watch how your soul begins to bloom. Talk to yourself in a tone that uplifts, not one that tears down, because you are always listening to yourself even when you pretend not to. Your healing begins the moment you become your own safe space. We teach others how to love us by the way we love ourselves. Make your inner voice your greatest ally. Let it be the one that reminds you of your courage, your resilience, your worth. You do not need to be perfect to deserve gentle words. You only need to be human. When you fall short, don't declare war on your soul. Hold it with compassion. Speak with warmth. Guide with grace. And when you finally treat yourself with love, you will find that the world outside begins to reflect that same love back to you. Forgive yourself for not knowing better before you knew. We carry guilt like invisible luggage, dragging it across the timeline of our lives, believing that somehow we must punish ourselves for every misstep we took in the darkness of unawareness. But how can a soul truly rise when it is constantly being pulled down by memories wrapped in regret? There was a time when you didn't know better, a time when you made choices from a place of confusion, pain, or desperation. You weren't equipped with the wisdom you have now. And yet, we often hold ourselves accountable not just for our actions, but for our innocence, for our naivety, for our lack of foresight. We forget that learning is a process, that growth is not linear, that mistakes are not evidence of weakness, but stepping stones towards understanding. You see, every tear you cried, every path you took that led to heartache, every wrong decision was simply a moment of learning dressed in difficulty. But the heart can't heal if it is constantly being told, you should have known better. Because you didn't. And that's not a flaw, that's just life. That's just being human. We all look back and wish we had loved differently, spoken softer, walked away sooner, trusted less or more. But wishing doesn't rewrite the past, it only binds the present. Self-forgiveness is not permission to be careless. It is permission to move forward without shame. It is saying to your inner child, you did the best you could with what you knew, and now we know better, now we grow. That's how you reclaim your power. Not by replaying the past, but by honoring how far you've come from it. People might remember your mistakes, but you don't have to carry them forever. Let them become lessons, not prisons. Let them become the reason you offer grace to others, and most importantly, to yourself. Because until you forgive yourself, no amount of external validation will bring you peace. There's a kind of freedom that blooms when you no longer hold yourself hostage for your yesterdays. When you say, yes, I stumbled, yes, I fell, but I rose, and I learned, and I'm still learning. That's where your strength is born, in the gentle courage to release what cannot be changed. If you had known the consequences, you would have chosen differently. If you had seen the hurt, you would have paused, but you didn't. And that's okay. You are not your past. You are the person rising from it. So today, wrap yourself in compassion. Look at your reflection and speak forgiveness into every part of you that still aches from yesterday's wounds. You are not broken, you are becoming. And in this becoming, forgiveness is your first breath. When you start to forgive yourself, you stop seeing your past as a burden. You begin to see it as a teacher. And every great teacher brings light, not punishment. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to feel worth even now. This is how healing begins, not with forgetting, but with forgiving. Rest is not weakness. It's a sacred act of self-compassion. We live in a world that glorifies exhaustion, where rest is often mistaken for laziness and slowing down is seen as falling behind. But the truth is, we were not built to run endlessly without pause. We are not machines. We are hearts, minds, and souls deeply human and beautifully fragile. Rest is not giving up. It is gathering strength. It is saying, I deserve to breathe. I deserve to be still. In a society that tells you to hustle harder, choosing rest becomes a quiet rebellion, a powerful declaration of self-worth. There's a voice inside you that's constantly pushing, achieve more, do better, don't stop. But there is also a softer voice, often drowned out, whispering gently, come back home. You need time. You need care. That voice is your truth. Listen to it. You do not have to prove your value through perpetual motion. Your worth is not measured by productivity. Some of the most powerful healing happens when you are still, when you let yourself rest without guilt. When you stop and realize that survival itself is worthy of praise. Rest is where your soul realigns. It is where clarity is born, where resilience is rebuilt. When you allow yourself to pause, you're not falling behind, you're preparing to rise again, stronger and wiser. We rest not just for our bodies, but for our minds, for our hearts. We rest so we can dream again, so we can forgive again, so we can feel again. Rest is the space between what was and what can. Be sacred ground where rebirth begins. And sometimes rest looks like closing your eyes in silence. Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's letting go of responsibilities that never belonged to you in the first place. Sometimes it's just breathing and letting that be enough. There is strength in surrender. There is power in pausing. The bravest thing you can do is to honor your limits. To say, I cannot give from an empty cup, and I will no longer apologize for needing to refill it. You are allowed to rest. Not because you're broken, but because you are whole. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise. The sun rises and sets. The ocean moves in waves. Even nature knows the importance of rhythm, of rest. You don't become less valuable when you pause. You become more aligned. You return to yourself. You reconnect with what matters. You remember who you are beneath all the noise. So take that nap. Take that walk. Say no when you need to. Cancel what drains you. And do so with pride, not guilt. Because in resting, you are choosing yourself. You are choosing life. And when you rise again, you'll rise with clarity, with strength, with renewed purpose. You'll rise not because you pushed harder, but because you finally allowed yourself to stop. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is compassion. That is love. You are deserving of love even from yourself. We spend so much of our lives seeking love from the world, from parents, from friends, from partners, from strangers. And in that chase, we forget the one source of love that matters the most, the love we give to ourselves. You are not required to earn love by being perfect. You are not obligated to fit into someone else's mold, to feel worthy. Love is not a prize for flawlessness. It is your birthright, and that includes love from yourself. The way you treat yourself becomes the foundation of every relationship you will ever build. If you cannot look at yourself with softness, how will you ever believe anyone who does? If you cannot accept your own love, the world's love will always feel like an echo. Self-love is not vanity. It's not arrogance. It is standing in front of the mirror and saying, I may not have it all figured out. I may be a work in progress, but I am worthy still. You don't have to wait until you've healed completely to be kind to yourself. You don't have to wait until you've achieved something big to feel proud. Celebrate your small victories. Honor your quiet strength. Acknowledge your silent battles. There will be days when the world feels cold, days when validation won't come. But if you carry love within you, if you whisper, I see you, to your reflection, you won't break, you'll bend and rise again. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to feel safe in your own presence. That begins when you stop abandoning yourself every time life gets hard. Sometimes self-love is simply refusing to betray yourself again. It's choosing not to settle. It's choosing not to shrink. It's choosing to stay true to who you are, even if the world doesn't always understand. Speak to yourself with tenderness. Choose foods that nourish you. Surround yourself with people who lift you. And most importantly, let go of the belief that you must first become better to be loved. You are already enough in this moment, as you are, with all your dreams, with all your fears, with all your light and shadow. You are enough. When you begin to love yourself truly, you will find that the love you receive no longer feels like charity. It feels like resonance, like reflection, like alignment. And on the days you feel unloved, return home to yourself. Because there, in the sanctuary of your own heart, love has been waiting patiently, silently, all along. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are just enough. Love yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. At the end of the day, there is a kind of power that doesn't roar. It doesn't break walls or shake the earth. It whispers, it breathes, it holds you when no one else does. That power is self-compassion. It is not about being selfish. It is not about giving up. It is about finally realizing that the longest journey you will ever take is not the one across continents or through accomplishments, but the one that leads you back to yourself. In a world that constantly pushes you to prove your worth, self-compassion reminds you that you are always worthy. It teaches you that your imperfections are not stains to be erased, but stories to be embraced. It helps you become the friend you always needed, the voice of kindness you never received, the gentle hand you longed for in moments of despair. Inner strength doesn't come from pretending you're okay when you're breaking inside. It comes from saying, I am hurting, but I am still here. I am afraid, but I will not abandon myself. That is courage. That is resilience. That is real power. When you embrace your imperfections, you unlock the door to authenticity. When you speak to yourself with kindness, you rewrite the script of your life. When you forgive yourself for what you didn't know, you open the space to grow. When you rest without guilt, you honor your humanness. And when you love yourself fiercely and unconditionally, you begin to heal the deepest wounds no one else could see. You don't have to be strong all the time. You only have to be true. You only have to stop running from yourself and start standing beside yourself with compassion, with patience, with unwavering love. Your scars are not shameful. They are symbols of your survival. Your pauses are not weakness. They are sacred. Your softness is not a flaw, it is your strength. And your love for yourself is not optional. It is the foundation of everything. So today, take a deep breath. Meet yourself where you are. Let go of the pressure to become someone else and return to who you are, gentle, resilient,